things that we're going to be.
As you know, within the last hour or this morning, and what we're going to do in the intro is just defer 1819 to the materials and enters the, those items. And before we tab and 27 items that we need to get.
Okay, are you ready to 26? Thank you.
Here's tab informational. Caltrans is California Aviation, which for preserving and enhancing the system. This is the first comprehensive update of this plan. The draft release for public comment in mid-November, and comments are due to Caltrans on the commission review, hold, and plan. So this item is going to serve as the first of 2 public hearings. We are planning to hold and adopt the plan at a meeting. Amy Choi, who is the chief of the Caltrans Division of Aeronautics, will provide an overview of the plan update. We'll have an opportunity to ask her any questions, and then we will open the hearing for public comment. To Amy.
Okay, no time. I'm unmuted. Good eveners. It's my pleasure to be able to present to you an update today on the California Aviation System Plan, lovingly known as the CASP. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge receipt from Commissioner Liu on Monday. And just due to the time today, we are going to address those comments at a later date scheduled on December 17th, so that way we can ensure to have the in-depth conversation that I think that those items require. So I will move on to the high level over, hopefully less than 10 minutes, and get you guys on with the rest of that evening here. Next slide, please. So the CASP is a vision document of the fusion of aviation in the state. It's capturing our conditions and looking to the future. It looks to integrate advancing technology, looking at the UAS vertical takeoff, and Uber Lyft is using Lyft out in New York, but eVTOL, and then high-speed rail. Air mobility to AAM now. It's not going to centered an environment that materials has a. So they're going to go from the transition to next slide. So the CAP looking at aligning with in our CTP and other state transportation, achieving through ability to leverage partnerships, projects, made great advances, environmental gains, construction, and just moving that way. Ability and reach full building around the airport structure, towns and community facilities, and the growth is responsible, safe for, but the Mhm. My notes. Integration, sustainability. So, active aligning with CTP in the community. Our other programs, so talking DOTP, transportation units, seeing areas that leverage that economic benefits that we bullet point development out to Yosemite, bike, ride spot, reduce that, and really the sports to the communities. Highlight aviation contributions to the community, emergency resources, public safety, airports serve airplanes and aviation movement, but also can be agency, as we've seen with the fires, fire suppression, refueling areas. Also, they can be used shelters and supplies, medical vaccine deployment of the COVID-19 vaccine that we all, again, fingers crossed, hope has a high efficacy there for protection. The fastest way to deploy that's going to be through air service once we get it out to the rural areas. Also, the economic driver that a local airport can be for community, whether it's rural or big service commercial, that provide jobs, education opportunities in areas to help support growth and expansion for cities. I'd like to just talk, I'd like about some in fuels, alternative fuel, electronic, battery in Fresno. Chandler, we have a company that has craft that have a waiver from the battery powered propulsion, and they're flying up doing flight training. About an hour and a half to 2 hours in flight, so it's not a distance necessarily if you have a strong headwind, but just time in the air. So they'd land, recharge, maybe grab a burger, and then take back up, all on alternative propulsion rather than jet fuel or low lead would be for our general aviation aircraft. And that's taking place in our valley. It's really, really great. Also, the innovative future through FAA. Next Gen's looking at streamlining approaches in airports, which makes the aircraft more efficient, less time in the air, less fuel burn. And it's of note that San Francisco International Airport received an award for having, I don't want to misstate it here, the world's first ever zero net energy airport facility, and it was completed in 2015 for the airfield operations building. It's a beautiful building. I've been in there, toured it, and that's all happening in our own backyard. And those are the things that the CASP is highlighting and capturing of as is and where we're moving to in the future to make gains in the environment. Next slide. So collaboration, our outreach plan. We had a high-level transportation professionals. I apologize. I have a 3-year-old screaming in the background. You guys probably can't hear her. It's very distracting to me, and you think by now I would get used to it, but she is a force to be reckoned with. So gain my thoughts back up here. Our CASP project team was headed up by Dennis O'Connor and Matt Friedman, who's our acting office chief of aviation planning currently. We have a steering committee members that were made up of industry professionals. So those in the business aviation world and airport sponsors, as well as through CalSTA and CTC staff. And we had 4 meetings to go over the chapters that we're receiving with Mead and Hunt, our consultants, and just getting real world industry input in the plan, making sure that it addressed current needs, emerging needs, and issues that we see the future of aviation having within this state and how that integrates nationally and globally. Next slide. Internally, we have the cooperation again with our sister planning and modal divisions, DOTP reaching out with the freight mobility planning and the CTP 2050, also the active transportation mobility plans and how we can integrate aviation into that it's not an afterthought, that we're part of the initial planning process and how we interrelate with each other. It's also a big ask from the airport community because they've often operated in silos, and so our outreach with our focus steering committee brought to light that if an airport wants to have cargo, a new cargo facility, and integrate that service, what does that do to the corridor then, the planning? Before I came to Caltrans in 2019 as the division chief for aviation, I was a duty officer at Sacramento International Airport, Sacramento County for 5.5 years. And there was a big push to want to have cargo go out to Mather. And I always expressed concerns about the corridor there. I-50 is congested, the dwell time of your semis and the loads of having multiple cargo planes coming in there. And that's not always at the forefront of somebody planning aviation and trying to get that service in. They're just thinking about service and how to maximize service to the area. So as much as we're trying to help aviation integrate with transportation, we're trying to have aviation sectors also integrate with the community a little bit better. Not that they don't now, but we can do better and strengthen that, and the CASP really highlights those things. Next slide. In communication for the CASP document, our focus steering committee meetings that we've had, and then also our website. We've been posting updates on the aeronautics website through Caltrans, and there's the link that was posted on November 12th or 13th for public comment of the draft plan. A link, my letter of transmittal saying that it's open for public review, this forum today, the meeting, and the comments that will come after everybody's had time to review it. I know it's a big document. It's about 360 odd pages. So if you've taken the time to read it cover to cover, thank you. It's been a labor of love for all of us, and Dennis, certainly. We'll just check on him. He's gonna need a vacation soon. He's done a great job with this. Next slide. So the fourth meeting that we had for the steering committee, our focus steering committee, was done in 2 parts just because the document is so large. We introduced changes to the chapters, incorporated, highlighted those, let people have time to see what was added. And this was from the FAA as well as from our stakeholders. And then had a follow-up meeting to address any more concerns or questions that might have come up after that. And then you have the draft CASP that you see on the link on our website. Admittedly, the CASP has taken a little bit longer to complete than we would have liked, but it has been running on schedule, tight ship since I've come on to the role, and we're happy to be on target. Maybe some days we feel like we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but definitely the delivery for 2021 is still on plan, even with the comments coming in at the end of the month. Next slide. Our contact information, this is the comments or questions section, I think. My presentation is over. I will mute myself for the time being.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, and we appreciate your presentation and knowing that we'll have another chance to talk about some of the questions we have in our next meeting. But today we have a question from Commissioner Inman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amy, great job. Thank you. Appreciate it. You did mention a greater focus on air cargo, and I think that we really do need to pay particular attention given the rapid expansion of e-commerce and speed to market and last mile. I think we're going to see more and more of that. We've seen that with our general purpose airports, with Ontario Airport cargo's really been carrying the day. So I just want to encourage you to continue to be inclusionary, to look at those solutions. And I think we'll see a lot of innovation in that space as well, because it's very competitive, and I think that's where that's a good genesis of some innovation that we can see. And then last, my question for you is, like, reviewing your counterparts in other states, is there a best in class that you look at in terms of with ENVI, in terms of an aviation plan?
I don't know that we have a best in class for comparison of what we're doing with the CASP. This is a new take on a system plan for a state. Typically, it looks at facilities and airports and regional plans. We're looking at it as an industry, aviation, and how it can integrate with the community. So this one hopefully actually is precedent setting, and that we are, in fact, going to be best in class. I do like Washington State DOT's brochure that they have, but I think, you know, for future renditions, we can do some modifications, but I am confident in saying that this one's going to be precedent setting, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done.
Great, thank you.
Okay, as we're taking items 26 and 27 together, we also have a comment from Commissioner Liu on item 27.
Oh, so Chair Norton, I believe what we can do is we can take Commissioner Liu's comment now, and
Right.
then open the public hearing.
Okay, that's fine.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's fine. Yes.
That's fine. Thank you, Chair Norton. I just want to let everyone know of my concerns, and I understand that Amy and I are going to try to get together and talk in more detail. But when I looked at one of the memos that was included in the meeting materials, it said the CASP strongly integrates with broader needs of the community and reflects that since the 1990s, aircraft and airports have continuously and effectively made gains in reducing emissions and advancing sustainability goals, and that sort of lit off some alarms in my mind because of my experience both with LAX and LAWA and also the South Coast AQMD. And so I dug into the data because I was pretty sure that wasn't true. And I found that the California Air Resources Board data shows that greenhouse gas emissions from aviation have increased 10% between the year 2000 and 2018. And that I wasn't too surprised by that. I kind of knew that was going on. But I also looked at the criteria air pollutant emissions, and they've gone up even more dramatically and are projected to go up even more dramatically. So for some of the key ones here in the smoggiest air basin in the country, like for NOx, it's projected to go up between year 2000 and year 2035, 69% for aircraft emissions. And similarly for SOx, it's projected to go up, 79% for NOx and 69% for SOx. And PM and reactive organic gas is also projected to increase during that time period. So there is an air quality and a climate greenhouse gas emission issue with aviation and aircraft emissions that really needs to be addressed and needs to be incorporated into the plan so that the plans are consistent with our statewide plans on addressing those issues in the transportation field. So, and I'm appreciative that staff has incorporated language into the letter that will address at least, part of that of the concerns I raised about that. But I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that the picture isn't all that rosy when it comes to aircraft and aviation emissions. At South Coast AQMD, I always remember when we were trying to deal with our NOx issues there, aircraft was, I think, perhaps the only emission category that was increasing in NOx over time, and all the rest were decreasing. So it's not the biggest NOx problem, but it's taking up an increasing percentage of it over time. So wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I think that, we as CTC can and should be part of the solution here and encourage TCEP projects that will help with near zero emission efforts. there are a lot of really good things going on, and there's some leaders in this industry, both in the airline companies who are really out there doing a lot of good things, then the alternative fuel providers, and some of the airports themselves. I've actually had a love-hate experience with LAX over the years and LAWA, but they do have a really great alternative fuel vehicle policy. They got a lot of things done through a community benefits agreement that I helped negotiate many, many years ago. So, Amy, you and I will talk. And thank you for the opportunity to take a look at this as a preliminary draft, and maybe we can get some of these changes in here, and I'll be completely happy with the next version of it.
And I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you too on that. And if I might just add, Sacramento International Airport also has alternative fuel vehicles there. Southwest is using electric pushback tugs for their vehicles, and any vehicle that goes into the basement to deliver your baggage is either electric or propane powered. So
yeah, and United has electric truck tugs at LAWA, and we have electrify. We asked and they agreed to electrify all the gates at LAX. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these things that help. We'll get real nerdy about it when we talk.
Yeah, well, we're trying. And the FAA by 2050, they said, is trying to reduce 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions that are caused from aviation. So it is something on the forefront of everybody, and hopefully people can understand the sensitive situation that aviation has. If you have a failure of your propulsion system in an aircraft, you not only have a failure of an engine, you have potentially a mass casualty incident on your hands. So it's a little bit slow to change, but not negligent in caring for the environment.
The importance of safety in aviation is pretty extreme too. And the deference is always to the pilots and the operators to make sure that they can operate their aircraft safely.
Correct. So
Thank
thank you.
Okay, and that concludes tab 26. And item 27 is the public hearing for comments on the draft California Aviation System Plan. So we want to open the public hearing. Are there any comments for the public today?
No public comment.
There is no public comment at this time, so we're going to close the hearing. With that, could we accept a motion on the hearing today?
I will move the motion to adopt the comment letter that was drafted by staff.
Second.
Do you have a second?
Yes, I second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardino. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Commissioner Tavaloni? Chair Norton?
Aye.
The item is approved. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you. And you recorded Commissioner Tavaloni. So, okay, great. Okay, now we are going to move to items 20 and 21, which will be taken together. Teresa, please present these items.
Thank you, Commissioner. Tabs 20 and 21 are action items. These are amendments to the 2021 interim timely use of funds policy. Tab 20 is for all programs under the Commission's purview except the SHOP. Tab 21 is for the SHOP program. The policy that you approved in May 2020 will expire this month, and this amendment would extend the deadline to June 30th, 2021. That represents your approval of tab 20 and 21.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public on these two items? No, seeing none. And are there any comments from our commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Could we take a motion on 20 and 21?
Move it.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, second.
Commissioner Tavaloni moves, Commissioner Burke seconds. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado? Yes. Commissioner Burke?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Eager?
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni,
Aye.
Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the item is approved.
Okay, thank you. Now we're moving on to item 22. Commissioner Inman?
Yes, Madam Chair, I wish to recuse myself as my employer, Majestic Realty, has holdings in close proximity to several of the projects, so I will recuse off of item 22.
Okay, thank you. And we do have a public comment on this item, which will be made after Hannah presents the item. Hannah?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Tab 22 is an action item for adoption of the 2020 Trade Quarter Enhancement Program. The program provides $1.348 billion over the next 3 years for freight projects. We've recommended 28 projects and $1.359 billion. The list is included as an attachment in the book item. The projects that we're recommending collectively, they'll increase truck throughput and rail capacity, reduce emissions, create new jobs, and they have other benefits as well. They exceed the projects that we're recommending exceed our funding capacity by 10.851 million, and that amount will be supported by future project cost savings. We received 47 applications and requests for over 1.7 billion. Making decisions on these projects was not easy, and I'd like to take a moment to thank our review team. There's 7 of them, and I'll call out their names. John Prey, Lori Waters, Alika Changizi, Darwin Vargas, Corby Kilmer, Don Chester, and Michael Joseph. So they put in a lot of time reviewing and discussing these applications. And Teresa, Tanisha, and Mitch also put in a lot of time throughout this process, just supporting us. So thank you everyone for your work on these applications. And for projects that are successful, I'll be working with them to get baseline agreements in place by May. For projects that are not successful, I'm more than happy to meet with them to talk about their applications. And with that, I would like to recommend approval of the 2020 Trade Quarter Enhancement Program, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I see we do have public comment on this item. When we are going to give 1 minute for public comment.
Yes, we have several individuals with their hands raised. Up first is Josh Newman. Josh, you are now unmuted and free to speak.
Mr. Newman? Okay, let's move on to the next public comment and bring back Mr. Newman if he clicks in.
All right. Up next, we have John Fasana. John, you're currently self-muted. Please unmute yourself and you'll be free to speak.
Okay. Again, we're having some audio issues. Are there any other public commenters for this item?
Yes, we have several individuals with their hand raised. Up next, we have Adrian Cardoso.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Norton, Vice Chair Alvarado, and Commissioners. I am Adrienne Cardoso with Orange County Transportation Authority, or OCTA. We want to thank CTC staff for the recommended funding for the State Route 55 improvement project between I-405 and I-5 from both the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program and the Local Partnership Competitive Program. This is a priority project for our region and our voters that was developed in partnership with Caltrans, and we are respectfully asking for your support of the staff recommendation. We look forward to partnering with the Commission and Caltrans in improving mobility within Orange County and preserving the economic vitality of California during this crisis. Thank you again for your time and support. That concludes my comments.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have John Fasana or Josh Newman back on the line?
Josh, you are now unmuted and free to speak.
And I talked to Martin. Martin's fine with it.
Mr. Newman?
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't know if it's exactly the same thing, but yeah.
All right. Mr. Newman, your mic is on.
To do is
If we could
call you, me,
mute
and
that,
Martin.
and if there are others that can participate.
Okay. Okay. Next. Up next, we have Andrew Antwith. Andrew, you're unmuted and free to speak.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair and members of the Commission, Andrew Antwi here today on behalf of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, here to express support and gratitude for the hard work with Commission staff reviewing the applications for this latest cycle of SB1 grant funding programs spread across congested corridors, TCEP, and the other program categories. We think that the distribution recommendations are to be commended, and we recommend that you approve the staff recommendations. LA Metro and the Los Angeles County region would benefit, and we think it's a good round of investments for projects in the Southern California region, and specifically in Los Angeles County. Projects are arrayed across some program categories that you haven't quite reached yet beyond just the TCEP. But in the TCEP category, there are SR 91 Goods Movement Corridor projects that we very much support. And so on behalf of Los Angeles Mayor Garcetti, we thank you for the staff recommendations, and we urge the commissioners to support.
Thank you very much to Mayor and Chairman of Metro Garcetti for us. Next public comment.
Up next, we have Bruce Abernathy. Bruce, you are now muted and free to speak.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners, CTC staff, and other people at the meeting and on the phone. On behalf of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, we would like to thank CTC staff for all the hard work that was just described to you by CTC staff as well in selecting the projects, and we appreciate our 10125 Interchange Phase 1 project being selected for TCEP and our 101 De La Cruz project being selected for the local partnership program competitive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two written comments. Do you want to read those comments into the record?
Sure. So the first written comment comes from Annie Nam. I am the manager of Goods Movement and Transportation Finance, representing the Southern California Association of Governments. On behalf of SCAG, we would like to strongly express our support for the proposed CTC staff recommendations to adopt the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, Local Partnerships Competitive Program, and Solution for Congested Corridors Program. The SCAG region serves as one of the most critical global freight centers, evidenced by the largest seaport complex in North America, ranking 9th in the world. The region is also home to the 10th largest airport in the world at Los Angeles International, the two largest Class 1 railroads, as well as one of the nation's largest industrial clusters, boasting over 1.2 billion square feet. The recent events during the COVID-19 pandemic have illustrated the tremendous need for resiliency in the region's supply chain, as demand and volatility for freight has increased dramatically. The projects listed in these three programs are all included in SCAG's recently adopted Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy, and therefore integral to meeting our regional goals, including mobility, accessibility, economic recovery, and GHG reduction targets in compliance with SB 375. Thank you. That concludes the comments from Annie Nam.
And there were 2 written comments, yes?
Yes. So the second written comment comes from Aaron from Hakimi of Kern Cog. Kern Cog supports the staff recommendation, the project on State Route 46 in Kern County. This will save lives, reduce air pollution, and reduce CO2 emissions. And then we just got a third written comment. And this is from Debbie Hale with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. Just confirming that you can see my raised hand. Apologies. Yes, I can see your raised hand. Thank you. That concludes the written.
Okay. Debbie Hale, do you want to give your oral comment now that you've raised your hand?
This is
Debbie,
Debbie
you're now
Hale.
muted.
Oh, hi, Chair Norton and Commissioners. This is Debbie Hale, Executive Director with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. I just wanted to express our support for the staff recommendation on this program for the Highway 156 at Castroville Boulevard Safety Improvement Project. This is a key access route for freight in the Salinas Valley. It will serve the largest distribution center in Monterey County and will help bring both fresh and packaged artichokes to your table. It also serves the disadvantaged community of Castroville and will provide access to not just existing low-income housing, but planned new low-income housing. In addition, it'll improve bike and pedestrian access to the North County, Monterey County High School. And so we hereby encourage your support of the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others in line for public comment?
Yes. Up next, we have Daniel Fox. Daniel, you are now muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon, Chair Norton, Commissioners, Director Weiss, and staff. My name is Dan Fox. I'm the City Manager for the City of Diamond Bar. I'm here to express our support for the TSIP grant funding recommendations, which are before you this afternoon, especially the SR 5760 Confluence Choke Point Relief Project. Diamond Bar Mayor Steve Ty also sent in a letter last week urging your approval of staff's recommendation as well. Hopefully you received that. The City of Diamond Bar is ground zero for the state's routes 57 and 60, where they converge for a 2.5-mile stretch. Every day, we witness the truck traffic, the accidents, the near misses, and the infamous weaving pattern that ranks this intersection as the 2nd worst for truck accidents in Southern California, the 9th worst for truck bottlenecks in the nation. These are 2 lists that we certainly don't want to be known for. This project will dramatically improve the safety by eliminating the dangerous weaving conditions. It will significantly improve goods movement along this important Los Angeles to Inland Empire trade corridor by reducing bottleneck conditions. We need to keep the momentum moving forward and complete these critical improvements. The recommended funding under the TSIP grant program will get us there. And thank you again for your consideration, and we encourage you to move staff's recommendation. Happy holidays, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we are still trying to get Senator Josh Newman. Oh, we have a written statement from him. Yes. Douglas, will you read that in, please?
Good afternoon, Chair Norton, Commissioners, committee staff. I respectfully urge the Commission to adopt the 2020 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, which includes nearly $218 million in SB1 funds for construction work on the State Route 5760 Confluence Choke Point Relief Project. The SR 5760 project will deliver significant safety, congestion relief, and air quality benefits to residents of my region who continue to endure some of the worst traffic congestion in the entire nation. The Transportation Research Institute has ranked the State Route 5760 Confluence as the 9th worst truck bottleneck in the nation. In addition to alleviating congestion, the project will also make important advances with respect to safety. As you are likely aware, the State Route 5760 Confluence has also been identified as the 2nd worst truck accident location in all of Southern California by the California Highway Patrol. The State Route 5760 project will increase freight throughput while reducing emissions and improving motorist safety around one of California's worst highway choke points. Such progress is both very welcome and much overdue. I respectfully urge your aye vote this afternoon on the adoption of the 2020 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program.
Are there other public
Yes.
commenters that wish to speak?
Up next, we have Alejandra. Alejandra, you're currently self-muted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Alejandra Miriteran. I'm the Executive Director of the Otay Mesa Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for allowing me to participate virtually, silver lining with COVID. I'm here to support two very important projects, our Otay 2 Port of Entry and our La Media Road project. And let me share with you that trade is actually up in Otay Mesa. And when I say up, I don't mean up compared to March when everything was shut down. Ever since July, we have had increases in trade every consecutive month when you compare it to the same month the previous year with no COVID. So clearly supply chains are shifting from Asia to North America, and critical trade infrastructure is key for us to reap these benefits. First of all, our Otay 2 project, the most innovative land port of entry that we'll have in the country, the only one that will guarantee a reduced wait time. Basically, it translates to efficiency for our trade and our cross-border community. The La Media Road project, this is a 2-lane unimproved city street, and it's basically California's exporting corridor. This is our southbound truck route for California into Mexico, our #1 trading partner. What the CTC staff is recommending is basically the balance of what we need to fully fund this project and go to construction as early as 2022. Basically, these two projects translate to efficiency and competitiveness, and both of them do a significant job in reducing gas emissions from vehicles and trucks idling every single day. So thank you to the CTC staff, and thank you to the commissioners, and we hope you can support these two projects.
Thank you very much. Our next public commenter.
Up next, we have Don Batiste. Don, you're free to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners and CTC staff. Don Batiste with the San Diego Association of Governments, and I am speaking today in support of adoption of the proposed TSEP program of projects. As I stated in public comment at the October meeting, this program is a great demonstration of how we leverage local and SB1 funds with our federal funds to advance critical infrastructure and goods movement projects in California and work to implement the National Freight Strategic Plan and California Freight Mobility Plan 2020 strategies. And the San Diego region handled almost $66 billion worth of trade last year. We are pleased to see that the critical freight projects in the region are recommended for funding in this cycle. Enhancements in the Low Sand Corridor, the future Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, and the City of San Diego's La Media Road project all work to further regional, state, and national goals related to goods movement, economic and disadvantaged community benefits, and reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We would like to acknowledge the partnership and collaboration with Caltrans and the California State Transportation Agency, as well as with USDOT and our congressional and state representatives to deliver these projects. So thank you, commissioners, for your support today.
Thank you. Next testimony.
Up next, we have John Fasana. You're currently self-muted. All right, John, I apologize. You are unmuted, but we cannot hear you. All right, at this time, up next, we have Julia Randolph. Julia, you're currently self-muted. All right, up next, we have Joshua Nelson. Joshua, you are now muted and free to speak.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Nortman, Commissioners, Director Weiss, members of the public. I am Joshua Nelson, Director of Public Works for the City of Industry, and I'm happy to speak here today on behalf of the State Route 5760 Confluence Choke Point Relief Project. I was glad to hear that you're able to get Senator-elect Josh Newman's comments earlier. As some of you may recall, his vote was critical to the passing of SB1. I really want to just echo his comments and Dan Fox from the City of Diamond Bar's comments. Those all were perfect for this project. One thing I just want everybody to remember about this project, if you've ever been there, it's essentially the equivalent of playing Frogger. Some of you may have played Frogger in a past life. When you're trying to go eastbound 60 on the freeway, you're essentially trying to squeeze your way between trucks that are blasting past you coming up on the 57 freeway. So anyways, we're looking forward to getting this project done to create a safer environment in that area. Appreciate your support of this project and staff's recommendation for that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another written comment, yes?
Yes, we have one more written comment from Stephanie White. Stephanie says, I concur with, please excuse me, Julie just submitted a written comment. So Stephanie White states, I concur with the comment from Diamond Bar that forced freeway weave is hideous and that design should never have been implemented. Thank you.
Yes. Next comment.
Next written comment from Julia Randolph. For the Coalition for Clean Air, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. TCEP project and other SB1 project recommendations made in this meeting do not embody the spirit of Governor Newsom's executive order N1919 and put California on a path to increase emissions at a time when climate change impacts have ravaged California. While we understand that the projects selected by staff meet current guideline requirements, these projects are not proven to reduce air pollution or advance a more equitable land use pattern. We need a shift that includes the prioritization of projects that create a safe and robust transit network, complete street projects, active transportation projects, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, zero emission freight, and reduced vehicle miles traveled. For future SB1 projects, we encourage the CTC to use the Climate Action Plan for transportation infrastructure as a means for making future funding decisions, especially updating the guidelines to prioritize and encourage emission-reducing projects, such as funding ZEV infrastructure in the TCEP program, as stated in the CAPTI framework. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude public comment? We have one more public comment.
Up next, we have James Corliss. James, you are now unmuted.
Chair Norton, commissioners, great to hear you. Really important item, obviously. Just want to really applaud the staff recommendation. Taking together the TCEP grants in our greater Sacramento region, I-5, I-80, and a connection that's critical between the Sacramento airport and our metro air park. This is about moving goods. The congested corridor piece of this is about moving people, building capacity without building more lanes. That's really what we're all about here, and it's really important. And our TCEP grants here that are in front of you are also ready to go in the middle of an economic crisis. We are ready to deliver on these. Sometimes we feel forgotten as a trade center in California. But this is Metro Air Park is going gangbusters, and these are jobs that will actually take trucks off our freeways and get them directly into the airport, and will pair with a lot of our cleaner technology and cleaner fuels. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corliss. And now we have one more public comment to conclude our public comment.
So we're going to try John Pisano one more time. John, you are now unmuted, free to speak. I apologize, John, we cannot hear you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for wanting to speak, Metro Board Member Fasana. We'll try to get you one more hand up.
Up next is Adrian Granda. You're now unmuted, free to speak.
Yeah, hello. This is Adrian Granda, Government Affairs Director for the City of San Diego, and just wanted to thank staff for the recommendations for the investments in the San Diego region. We've been really working closely with our partners along the border, some of our trade goods movement partners, our MPO Sandag as well, who's up for some recommendations, in particular on the City of San Diego side, La Media Road, critical goods movement infrastructure project, and we're committed to the state's climate goals. So really want to thank you for your leadership and your recommendations here today.
Thank you very much. Does that conclude the public hearing? Yes. Okay, thank you. We have a request to speak by Commissioner Liu.
Okay, then I have to find my mute button, don't I? Thank you, Chair Norton. I'm encouraged by the good projects that are proposed, but I think it's unfortunate that we, if we look at the overall list of both the projects that were proposed for funding and those that were not proposed for funding, we don't have a single one that's a zero or near zero emission alternative fuel or clean freight transportation system proposal. And I would have been much happier if we had the choice to adopt an eligible clean tech project, such as something like you find in the RTPs, the creation of alternative fuel corridors, solar charging for transportation refrigeration units, solar EV charging, energy storage, and projects that would reduce emissions from things like yard trucks and tugboats and locomotives, ocean-going vessels, forklifts, top picks, and side picks. All could have been funded and proposed, but they're not on this list. So I just want to say that I understand it takes a while to get these projects through. It's a new thing that we've been talking about and trying to do, and everyone's been very supportive of the idea. It's going to take some additional time, but I think applicants should know, and what we heard from Secretary Kim today, I think reinforces that the day is going to come when the CTC staff's SB1, please approve this and adopt this recommendation list, is not going to include business as usual, lane widening, traffic inducing, VMT increasing projects. And if they don't incorporate, all the things we've been talking about, the mode shift, the zero emission, near zero emission, active transportation, complete streets, last mile, innovative public transit, all that stuff we've been asking for, those projects are going to end up on that sorry, but we're not going to fund you list. So please take that into consideration for this next cycle. We're going to be encouraging, and I think working on all different aspects of this process to make sure that we will have those type of projects to fund in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Liu. And now we'd like to hear from Commissioner Alvarado, who wishes to speak.
And I agree pretty much with your statements, Commissioner Liu, but we all have to understand something here. When we were all working on SB1 to get those votes cobbled together, we pretty much had to make some promises to the folks in the different areas to gather those votes from the legislators. And then as we moved to Prop 6, the advertisement on Prop 6 were these projects in those local areas to bring those votes in. So we made some promises when we brought forth SB1 and Prop 6. We have to keep those promises. It's a 10-year infusion of money, and just like we told the organizations, we have to tell every stakeholder, it's going to take us a while to get there because we made some promises that we have to keep. And then once we get those promises, once we've kept those promises, we can add complete streets, if you will. We can do some little things like that. But there's some projects that we need to deliver as a promise we made to the voters when both of those initiatives went through. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Alvarado. And we have an additional request to speak from Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be quick. One, I just want to state, and I think I would be remiss to not thank the CTC staff and those that rated the various applications for these programs. I think it's important for us to recognize the work that they put into putting this together and the recommendation. I too agree with Commissioner Liu that as we move forward to telling a new story about ensuring not just expanding, our roads as we have in the past, but ensuring that we have multimodal opportunities across the state of California. If I look at these projects here, certainly, there were promises that were made, but as we move towards telling the new story and where we want to go, we need to be honest with ourselves. And I keep on repeating this, and I will, as long as I'm on this commission, that the primary driver of greenhouse gas emissions, of congestion, is the lack of conversation about land use. That is the primary driver. And I think it's imperative that we figure out a way to have this discussion with local municipalities, because yes, goods movement is vital for us here in California, but at the same time, let us be honest about congestion. The amount of money, in particular last year, $35 billion, in transportation investments for California, we still have congestion. That's still, and so we're not going to solve our problem by continuing to think that we can solve congestion by expanding our highways. I think it's important to have access, and our guiding principles need to talk about access. And so I just want to state that I understand that there were promises made, but as we move forward, let us tell the new story that we've been talking about since I've been on this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. We have an additional public comment that came in. Yes.
Yes, thank you. This comes from Patricia Taylor, Director of Madera County Transportation Commission. I am writing in support of the CTC staff recommendations and appreciate their effort in preparing the list of proposed projects. The project in Madera County is a goods movement, mobility, and safety project. The completion of State Route 99 is important to the Valley. This project is consistent with the state's goals. Thank you for the investment in the San Joaquin Valley, Madera County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the public hearing, and it concludes our comments. So if I could entertain a motion in support of item 22.
Commissioner Alvarado, I make the motion to support.
Second, Mark.
Thank you very much. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Mr. Alvarado.
Yes.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tavalloti.
Aye.
Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the item is approved.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item 23, the 2020 Local Partnership for Lane Program Adoption. Anya.
Thank you.
Avaloni's off.
Thank you, Chair Norton. Tab 23 is an action item to adopt the 2020 Local Partnership Formulaic Program. The Commission established the 2020 Local Partnership Formulaic Program as a 3-year, $329 million program covering fiscal years 2021 through 2022-23. 14 agencies submitted 25 project proposals by the June 12th, 2020 deadline, and subsequently 6 additional agencies submitted 5 project proposals for a total request of 30 projects from 20 eligible agencies. The 30 project proposals requested a total of $202,859,000 in formulaic funds. Commission staff reviewed the project proposals for eligibility and consistency with the approved guidelines. Through the review process, staff ensured applicant agencies had an opportunity to verify, review, and request modifications prior to releasing staff recommendations. 8 agencies requested advanced programming for 9 projects totaling $45,207,000. The Commission approved these 9 projects at the June, August, and October 2020 meetings.
The recommended project list includes 19 new projects and 9 projects that were previously approved for funding. 2 projects are not being recommended at this time because the agencies have asked to wait until a later date to program the projects. In total, the 2020 local partnership formulaic program of projects will program a total of 28 projects totaling 182,099,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds. 24 agencies have elected not to apply for their formulaic funds at this time, and the 2020 local partnership program guidelines do allow agencies with adopted 2020 formulaic funds to nominate projects for the program until April of 2023. After approval of this item, the remaining local partnership formulaic funds available for programming will be $177,940,000. Staff recommends that the Commission adopt the projects in the 2020 local partnership formulaic program as reflected in Attachment B of the book item.
Thank you. We have no requests to speak on public comment and no requests from commissioners. So if we could entertain a motion to support item 23.
This is Commissioner Lim. I move to support the staff recommendation.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
I'm working.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Gordino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the item is approved.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to item 24, the 2020 Local Partnership Competitive Program Adoption. Christine?
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Tab 24 is an action item to adopt the 2020 Local Partnership Competitive Program. The Commission established the 2020 Local Partnership Competitive Program as a 3-year, $216 million program. The Commission received 62 nominations seeking over $647 million, valued at more than $3.9 billion. The request is 3 times as much as the funding available, clearly reflecting the transportation needs across all localities in the state. An evaluation team consisting of CTC and Caltrans staff reviewed all 62 project nominations based on the screening and 9 evaluation criteria set forth in the Commission's adopted guidelines. 2 applications were deemed ineligible based on the information provided in the application. Staff recommendations proposes 21 projects for $213 million. These projects combined are valued at more than $1.4 billion. The recommended program of projects includes an over-program amount of $28 million for 2 projects on the contingency list to be funded with unused incentive funding set aside each fiscal year. We have had some discussions with agencies who were not successful to go over their applications and how the project could be more competitive in the next cycle. We will continue to have these discussions to assist agencies in preparing future applications. The projects recommended will maintain roadways, construct HOV, express and auxiliary lanes, active transportation, bridge, local road and transit improvements, traffic management system enhancements, and sound walls. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the CTC and Caltrans staff that made up the evaluation team. Anya Allenbacher, Beverly Newman Buckhart, Carolyn Dabney, James Anderson, Jose Oseguera, Julia Kinsley, Kayla Geethy, Lindsay Lechfus, Mary Lou Taylor, Matthew Yozgat, Sharon Bertozzi, and Sheila Ennis. Their time, effort, experience, and perspectives were extremely valuable and much appreciated. In addition, a special thank you to both the California Housing and Community Development and California Air Resources Board teams for providing technical assistance during the evaluation process. This concludes my remarks, and staff recommends the Commission adopt the projects in the 2020 Local Partnership Competitive Program as reflected in the staff recommendations.
Thank you very much, Christine. We have 4 public comments, 3 oral and 1 written, and then Commissioner Martinez has requested to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I will begin with the first written comment that comes to us from Michael Saint of Santa Cruz. His question is, when do we say no to single occupancy vehicle projects? At what point in time do we shift from a more sustainable transportation to a more sustainable transportation system? Widening highways does not work. If Santa Cruz County gets funding approved, it will delay out mitigation efforts to reduce GHG emissions and vehicle miles traveled for decades. Please do not fund Santa Cruz Tier 2 auxiliary lane project. We advocate for dedicated buses on shoulder projects. Thank you.
Next comment.
Jesse Rosemore, I see you with your hand raised. You are now unmuted and free to speak.
Hi, this is Jesse Rosemore with the SFMTA. I just want to thank the Commission for supporting the Mission Geneva Safety Project. This project brings great pedestrian, bicycle, and transit reliability improvements to the Excelsior neighborhood, which is a low-income and immigrant-rich community. These corridors are on San Francisco's high injury network, and they've had relatively few safety upgrades since they were originally laid out in the 20th century. So we just want to thank you. This is a great help to that community, and we really appreciate your support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment.
Up next, we have Guy Preston. Guy, you're unmuted and free to speak.
Hi, I'm Guy Preston, Executive Director of the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission. I would like to thank Commission staff for recommending the Watsonville to Santa Cruz Multimodal Corridor Program Cycle 2 project for funding and for your consideration today. This is not a one-component transportation project. This is a multimodal transformative project that provides the traveling public with sustainable transportation options in a very thoughtful manner. For Highway 1, I would like to thank Caltrans, CHP, and the Santa Cruz Metro on their efforts in developing our bus on shoulder concept of operations plan, which models what will be the first hybrid auxiliary lane bus on shoulder facility in California. In addition to Highway 1 improvements, this project reconfigures our parallel route, SoCal Drive, into a complete street with over 5 miles of buffered and protected bike lanes and numerous pedestrian improvements. Adaptive signal control will be installed at 23 intersections with transit bus prioritization. This project also includes 2 new active transportation bridges across Highway 1 and vehicular bridge replacement with sidewalks and bike lanes. The mode switch from vehicles to clean bus transit, biking, or walking is what makes this project a net VMT and GHG reducing project. On the behalf of the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission, I would like to thank CTC staff and commissioners for your thoughtful approach to your funding programs and your consideration for a project like ours. Without CTC support, our county, a county of our size would not be able to deliver an innovative and transformative project of this nature. Thank you.
Thank you for that important clarification and detail. We have 2 more public comments, and then, as I said, we will go to Commissioner Martinez.
Next, we have Marita Calloway. Maria?
I'm the chair of the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors. Madam Chair, Commissioners, the State Route 4 Wagon Trail Realignment Project is a key economic and transportation corridor for our rural county. It's been our high priority for over 2 decades as it follows an 1840 wagon trail. So as you can tell, it's time for a realignment. And on behalf of Calaveras, I want to thank the CTC staff for recommending Wagon Trail for funding under the local partnership program. And commissioners, we do seek your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment.
Up next, we have Rick Longinati. Rick, you are now unmuted and free to speak.
Thank you. I'm Rick Longinati from the Campaign for Sustainable Transportation in Santa Cruz. And I'm opposing this funding for Santa Cruz because the lion's share of the funding would go for auxiliary lanes, which a Caltrans EIR said will not be useful to reduce congestion or improve safety on the highway. It's been a longstanding ambition political leaders in the county to widen Highway 1, and this is a sort of a down payment on that effort to widen the highway. Unfortunately, the big casualty here is bus transit, because we do have an opportunity to build bus on shoulder. The state legislature gave special permission for Santa Cruz and Monterey County to do that back in 2013. And we're not going to get that with auxiliary lanes. Well, buses will be stuck in auxiliary lanes. I wish I could show you a photo of an auxiliary lane at rush hour in which a bus will be totally stuck and not attracting new riders. So please send this back to Santa Cruz for revision to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have one additional comment that came in.
Yes, up next we have Debbie Hale.
Hello, this is Debbie Hale. I'm the Executive Director with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, and I'm speaking in favor of the staff recommendation in support of the Highway 1 project in Santa Cruz County. You may be wondering why. Well, this is the first step towards a regional bus rapid transit corridor between Santa Cruz and Monterey. We have a SURF project that's going to be starting on our Monterey branch line, and you'll hear more about that in the future. But we would like to be able to have those buses also bypass the traffic in Santa Cruz County. And because of this innovative bus on shoulder program that is in fact part of this project, we're very much in support of this project for both this local partnership program funding and the congested corridors funding. So I hope you'll support staff recommendation on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Commissioner Martinez and then Commissioner Gardino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, I just, and it's for the next two, this item and the next item. There were a lot of obviously cities that applied that didn't get this funding, and I want to thank staff for responding to my emails as I spoke to various cities these past couple days. And I understand that the CTC staff does whatever it takes to engage cities, but sometimes it's not just the cities and its staff, it's also the elected officials. There are a lot of elected officials that want to be involved and want to understand what these guidelines are and what the processes are. And as I spoke to the mayor of Coachella, in particular, Mayor Hernandez, understanding that they applied once to some of this funding, and then they apply again and they didn't get the funding. And obviously there's various constraints. We don't have enough money. Their project may not have been competitive, but I think what's important here as we start to tell this new story is that we also need to engage different players. And so it's no longer just transportation agencies or cities and public works, but we need to figure out ways of how to engage community and also those elected officials that represent these communities and cities. And so I just wanted to put that on the record, and I hope that the CTC staff and us as commissioners will continue to support that kind of engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. Commissioner Gardino.
Thank you, Chair Norton. And very brief, I want to thank Debbie Hale and Monterey County, Guy and Santa Cruz County, and the voters in Santa Cruz County. In 2016, the voters and taxpayers there passed what was called Measure D to tax themselves. And the improvement that we have before us today on Highway 1 is because of that effort and that local match. And obviously, none of these measures win by 100%. It won with nearly 68% of the vote, that hard 2/3 margin for voters taxing themselves. And I'll certainly be voting in support of their efforts to move this forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gardino. We have one more public comment before we take this item up.
Yes, this comes from Julie Randolph with the Coalition for Clean Air. We would like to echo Rick's comments about the Santa Cruz auxiliary lanes. We need to align transportation funding with climate goals. We request that the Commission deny the grant requests for auxiliary lanes. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion on this item, please. Commissioners?
So moved. Commissioner Davis.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Burke, second by Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Douglas, please read the roll.
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Okay, and now we are on to item 25, the Solutions for Congested Corridors Program. Matthew?
Good evening, commissioners. I will try to bring us home and be as quick as possible. So tab 25 is an action item to adopt the 2020 Solutions for Congested Corridors Program. The commission established the 2020 Solutions for Congested Corridors Program as a 2-year, $494 million program. The program's objectives are to fund projects designed to reduce congestion in highly traveled and highly congested corridors through performance improvements that balance transportation improvements, community impacts, and provide environmental benefits. I want to highlight that a new requirement with the 2020 program was that all nominated projects must be included in a multimodal corridor plan and prepared in accordance with the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan guidelines adopted by the Commission in December of 2018. The Commission received 21 project nominations seeking over $1.3 billion in funding. With requests exceeding program capacity by nearly $1 billion, there is clearly a great need for projects to address congestion across the state. Staff recommendations, which were published on November 16th and included in attachment B, include 7 projects for $500 million in funding. The combined value of these projects is $2.6 billion. The total programming exceeds identified funding capacity by $6 million, which will be supported by future Solutions for Congested Corridor project savings consistent with the program guidelines. This recommendation includes projects that will offer multimodal approaches to each respective congested corridor, and on the whole, these projects will drastically reduce vehicle hours of delay, reduce vehicle miles traveled, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, support efficient land use principles, improve safety, and create thousands of new jobs throughout California. Despite the need for brevity, I still need to take the opportunity to personally thank each individual CTC and Caltrans staff that assisted with the evaluation process. Teresa Favila, Anthony Cerna, Bridget Driller, Celeste Acivas, Gratej Vital, Casey Rogero, Laura Pennybaker, and Leah Shepard. Additionally, I would like to take a brief moment to thank the respective staff at the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Air Resources Control Board for providing technical assistance during the evaluation process. Since posting the staff recommendations on November 16th, we have received several comment letters included in attachment C and both as yellow and pink updates. The staff recommendation is in line with program statute, the adopted program guidelines, the adopted comprehensive multimodal corridor plan guidelines, and staff recommends your approval of projects in the 2020 Solutions for Congested Corridors program as presented in this item. This concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. We have public comment, a number of 6 public commenters, and we also have a request to speak by Commissioner Liu.
First, we have Luke McNeil-Caird. Luke, you're free to speak.
Chair Norton and Commissioners, Luke McNeil-Caird for the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. I'm representing 3 nominating agencies for our region's SCCP grant application, PCTPA, SACOG, and Caltrans, and we're asking commissioners to support staff recommendations. We're proud to have completed the first CTC compliant congested corridor plan in Sacramento, which also includes the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority and Sacramento Regional Transit. I'll just say there are 1 million empty seats on Interstate 80 each day, and we're working on multimodal solutions, and this is a key part of getting there. Key partners include Disadvantaged Communities, Invest Health Community Partnership, sponsored by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in Roseville, the Sacramento Urban League, and also the Sierra Club, who all supported our applications. Thank you on behalf of the Sacramento region to CTC commissioners and CTC staff for all their hard work.
Thank you. Our next public comment.
Up next, we have Kate Miller. Kate, you're currently self-muted.
Hi, thank you, Chair Norton, Commissioners. My name is Kate Miller, and I'm the Executive Director of the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. The staff recommendations for the Solutions for Congested Corridor program includes $25 million for the Soskel Junction project, which will greatly reduce traffic congestion and improve safety for all modes at the intersection of State Route 29 and State Route 221. The intersection is also a major evacuation route for both Napa and Sonoma counties, which has become essential due to increasing and devastating wildfires in wine country. The project has received unanimous support from the community, including endorsements from state, federal, local officials, Napa Bicycle Coalition, the Vine Trail Coalition, and wine and hospitality industry groups in Napa Valley. On behalf of the MBTA board and staff, I'd like to thank CTC staff for prioritizing this project and support the commission's approval of the proposed program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next public comment.
Up next, we have Ann Richmond.
Good afternoon, Chair Norton and Commissioners. This is Ann Richmond, the Executive Director of the Transportation Authority of Marin. On behalf of TAM, I'd like to thank CTC staff and the Commission for the recommendation to provide funding for the Marin-Sonoma Narrows B7 HOV project. This corridor is a high priority in the North Bay, and this segment would leverage SB1 and local funds to close the final gap in the Narrows on US 101 in Marin and Sonoma counties, providing a 17-mile continuous HOV lane between the two counties, as well as a bike route and improved transit access. This segment is the final link in years of investment in this corridor program, providing significant benefits to the people and communities who rely on 101 every day. We truly appreciate the partnership with the CTC, Caltrans, and our local partners, including MTC and Sonoma County, and I respectfully urge the Commission to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next public comment.
Up next, we have Kenneth Cow. You are currently self-muted.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Kenneth Cow with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. On behalf of my Executive Director, Teresa McMillan, I wanted to extend our support for staff recommendation. We believe the staff recommendations strike a good balance among transportation needs, environmental sensitivities, and geographic considerations. And I also wanted to thank CTC staff for their hard work in developing the program guidelines through a very open and inclusive process and evaluating all nominations fairly based on the criteria established in those guidelines. Thank you again.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Next, we got Zach Friend.
Madam Chair and members of the Commission, my name is Zach Friend. I'm a Santa Cruz County Supervisor that represents much of the proposed project area here, and it's a significant privilege to lend my enthusiastic support for these multimodal projects. You know, if adopted, these projects, which include bus, bike, ped, and highway improvements, will be the largest investments in transportation equity and safety in our community's history. I represent a district with a federally disadvantaged community, which earns on average less than half of the yearly median for the U.S., and they've been disproportionately impacted by congestion challenges facing the bus system and personal vehicles. They've also experienced a disproportionate number of the injuries and fatalities associated with bike and ped accidents. And that what's before you today are projects that will have a positive environmental and equity impacts that are widely supported by my district and align importantly with the values outlined by our region and the state, and will have significant impacts for this community especially. I just want to thank you for elevating and supporting these projects, especially your leadership and the staff's leadership means a lot to our community and a lot to me. So that'll conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those important comments. Next public comment.
Up next, we have Robert Morgan. You are currently self-muted.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Bob Morgan, and this is my first CTC webinar, and I'm so encouraged by the conversation I've heard about multimodal transportation and the fallacy of expanding highways to improve congestion. I especially was so impressed with Commissioners Martinez and Liu. I believe I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much for your comments. I've heard comments about innovative bus on shoulder project for Highway 1 between Santa Cruz and Watsonville. Unfortunately, putting in an aux lane on this highway section will not dedicate that lane to bus on shoulder, and it will not improve bus service or public transit between Watsonville and Santa Cruz. I live in Live Oak, an unincorporated area 4 miles south of the city of Santa Cruz, and Highway 1 bisects Live Oak between Santa Cruz and the city of Watsonville. And at peak drive hours in the morning going north and in the afternoon going south, this corridor is heavily congested. It's bumper to bumper. Currently, there's no efficient public transit from Santa Cruz to Watsonville. The One Express bus route travels on surface streets as well as on the highway, and it shares lanes with automobiles. I'd rather see highway funding go to dedicated bus on shoulder lanes, both north and south, rather than auxiliary lanes on any project on Highway 1 between Santa Cruz and Watsonville. Auxiliary lanes will only encourage more drivers to enter Highway 1 in the hope of a more efficient commute. Commuters need an alternative to leave their automobile and take express bus on a dedicated bus on shoulder lane between Santa Cruz and Watsonville to make their commute more efficient. This will lower VMT and decrease greenhouse gases and give commuters more transportation choice. Thank you for your hard work, commissioners. I appreciated listening to you today and commenting.
Thank you for your comment. Next public comment.
Up next, we have Rick Longinati. You're currently self-muted.
Thank you. It's Rick Longinati again. Highway congestion is one of those problems that the experts tell us can only be solved through congestion pricing. And when, community is not ready for that, then it looks for other solutions, but there really aren't any. And politicians like to make it seem like they're implementing solutions, because the appearance of doing something about a problem can get you votes and get you reelected, even if the problem cannot be solved. And that's what we have in this community with the aspiration to widen Highway 1. And as I mentioned, there's an EIR that says there will be no congestion relief, not even in the short term, for auxiliary lanes. And the so-called bus on shoulder that's proposed, which is really bus in the auxiliary lane, is not. There's no other community in the country that runs primarily in auxiliary lanes. So I think this is a case of money being wasted, but worse than that, money that could go to a real good transit service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more written comment, and then that will conclude the public comment. And then we have a request to speak by Commissioner Liu.
This message comes from Assemblyman Mark Stone, 29th District. Dear Chair Norton and Commissioners, I am expressing my support for the Watsonville-Santa Cruz Multimodal Corridor Program. As a former county supervisor, RTC Commissioner, and Transit District Board member, I can attest that the RTC Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District and the County Public Works Department have worked extensively with the community for over 20 years to prioritize projects and identify funding to address significant transportation challenges in this heavily traveled corridor. In 2013, in recognition that buses are stuck in extreme traffic congestion, I authored Assembly Bill 946, providing authorization for buses to operate on the freeway shoulders in Santa Cruz County. In 2016, Santa Cruz County voters approved Measure D, a half-cent sales tax for multimodal transportation improvements, which prioritized auxiliary lanes on Highway 1, regionally significant bicycle and pedestrian improvements, transit service, and multimodal improvements to local roads. I am pleased that the Senate Bill 1 can provide the funds needed to fully fund the construction of these projects. I appreciate the California Transportation Commission's full consideration of the Watsonville-Santa Cruz Multimodal Corridor Program. Sincerely, Assemblymember Stone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assemblymember Stone, in written form. And now we'll move to Commissioner Liu comment.
Thank you, Chair Norton. I guess I have a question for staff. I mean, based off the back and forth over this Watsonville to Santa Cruz proposal, I would like to have staff repeat what they told me when I asked about it, because I can tell you I never quite really appreciated how well the transportation and worked in Los Angeles until I moved to Santa Cruz, because it was a long time ago, but when I went there for graduate school, I realized that there were a lot of inefficiencies on how people got around in the community. But I did ask staff, how they felt about the comments of the people who were concerned about this. And if you could just please tell me again why you chose this project, I would appreciate it before I ask.
For comment, or Matthew, do you want to respond?
Yeah, Chair Norton, I'm happy to respond, unless Mitch wants to, of course. So Commissioner Liu, So as I think we've demonstrated, several of the projects recommended in the Solutions for Congested Corridors program are multimodal approaches that were developed through in-depth corridor, multimodal corridor planning efforts. The project that we received out of Santa Cruz County was such a project. We have some active transportation elements. We have 23 signal traffic signal synchronization that has priority for transit. There is the hybrid auxiliary bus on shoulder component along Highway 1. And it was the mix of all of those components together that made this a competitive program. Ultimately, we look at the project as a whole. The project as a whole is reducing VMT based on the information that is presented to us. Obviously, if you were to take the auxiliary lane component separately, that would have competed differently as a standalone project. So that's why we would only speak to the project as a whole.
Great. Thank you for that explanation. I do appreciate it. My question actually, though, had to do with something completely different. When I was looking at these projects, I was wondering what happens, because some of them I knew were still in the environmental phase. And I was wondering what happened if a lead agency got selected by us, but then decided on a different alternative during the environmental. And Mitch told me, well, that project would lose its funding. And I thought, well, that totally makes sense, because we're funding a project, and if they don't go forward with that project, we can't, shift the funding around. But then I wondered, why do we consider projects that are still in the environmental phase and not wait until they've actually selected an alternative before moving forward? And this, I think, could save us the hassle of having to reprogram the money if a different alternative gets selected. But it also, I think, would help the integrity of the environmental review process, because if an applicant is supposedly taking a neutral analysis of different alternatives from an environmental standpoint, yet one of them has a $100 million check attached to it, I think it's hard for them to look at the project in an unbiased fashion. I know if I were making that decision, I would certainly want to lean toward the one that was being paid for. So I guess my question to staff is, why do we fund projects that haven't completed their environmental review?
Mitch, would you like to respond to that question?
I would be happy to respond to that question. Thank you. I would say that I would like us to move towards doing exactly what you suggested, Commissioner Liu, to only funding projects once they're through environmental. I think if we can start having that conversation now, in the next cycle, everybody knows that's where we're gonna end up in next cycle. Time your projects accordingly, and so we can be in a position to be a little less sympathetic to people who are saying, look, we did our draft environmental, we're almost through, just give us a little more time to meet that deadline. We have had an instance in the trade corridor program where I think one, if not two projects weren't able to meet the deadline. And so when they did get deprogrammed, they were smaller projects, but I think your point is quite valid. How much are we considering all the alternatives if there's a big check attached to one of them? And so I think that's something we need to really move towards in the next cycle.
Well, I'm glad you agree, and I would support doing that.
Thank you very much for that conversation and this clarification. Appreciate your input, Director Weiss. With that, could we have a motion related to item 25?
So moved. Kehoe.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke, is that you? Thank you. Commissioner Eager.
You don't know what protonics is for. Aye. You don't teach
Thank you. Commissioner Gordino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank you to my fellow commissioners for staying late so that people who had stayed in order to, all day in order to testify didn't have to come back tomorrow to participate. We will be starting our meeting at our regular 9 a.m. time, and we have extended tomorrow's meeting to 1 p.m. if needed. We thank you for your time today, and congratulations to all of the project recipients today. With that, our meeting is adjourned.